Here we are at St. Thomas Episcopal Church on 5th Avenue and 53rd Street, getting ready to remove window A1, Christ the King, in the bride's staircase. The first thing we do is take photographs showing all the setting details. We have to remove the iron cage on the exterior first. This is the only window in the church that has this cage. The windows at St. Thomas were made by James Powell and Sons, Whitefriars, London, between 1929 and 1970. This window was made in 1931 and is part of a project to restore all the windows in the church. They comprise over 9,000 square feet with approximately 380,000 pieces of glass. Once the bolts are out, the cage is easy to lift off. The protective screen comes off, and beneath that is the plastic protective glazing that was added in the 1980s. We take pictures of it. The protective glazing will not go back on after the window is restored because it is no longer needed. The protective glazing is held in with a sealant, which is cut with an electric knife and pulled out. This glazing is either an acrylic like plexiglass or a polycarbonate like Lexan, and you can see how yellowed and opaque it has become. Now we see the stained glass window and we take more pictures. We take pictures on the inside as well, and we'll do the same set of photographs when the window is reinstalled so that we have a set of before and after pictures. The window is then cut away from the opening. And it comes out. In order to transport the window to the studio safely, it's crated. It's protected by styrofoam in the crate so that it doesn't bang around. 1-inch holes are cut in the upper corners of the lid of the crate to allow any acid from the wood to escape. This acid could damage the window. We use standardized labels in this project so that we know where each window goes in the building and what section is in the crate. We then put new Lexan in the window opening to close it temporarily while the window is restored, and reinstall the screen and the cage. Once the scaffolding is down, we'll be ready to go back to the studio. We are using 10 to 12 studios on this project located around the country from Boston to San Francisco, in order to get the restoration done in a short amount of time. At the studio, we take the window out of the crate, and here you can see the condition. Documentation of the restoration is very important, so we take pictures in the studio as well, in transmitted and reflected light of the inside and the outside of the window. Another important piece of documentation is the rubbing. Putting a piece of paper over the window, we rub it with a hard wax stone to pick up the impressions of the lead cane. This rubbing is used as an archival document on which we record conditions and restoration processes. Different sizes of leads are marked in different colors. All of the cane will be replaced. In this case, the window is being prepared for display purposes in the narthex of the church, so it is temporarily separated into two sections, one to be restored and the other left unrestored. Eventually, the other half will be restored and the two halves united and reinstalled. In order to protect the craftspeople from lead dust, all dismantling work is done underwater. In this way, the window is cleaned at the same time that it's taken apart. In the lower left, you see a copy of the rubbing. As the pieces of glass are taken out of the window, they're put on top of this rubbing so that we know where they go. Samples of the lead cane are kept and measured so that we can duplicate the sizes exactly. Broken pieces of glass are reassembled, not replaced. We clean the edges of the breaks using a fiberglass brush. Tape is put on one side to hold the pieces together temporarily. The tape is used as a hinge so that the pieces are still aligned but can be opened up. We use a silicone adhesive which is buttered onto the edge of the crack. Excess adhesive is removed with a razor blade. When all of the pieces are cleaned and glued, we're ready to re-lead the panel with the new lead. And here's another copy of the rubbing put on the bench, and the window is assembled on top of it. This is so that we know where all the pieces go, and so that the panel is kept to the correct size. A pair of boards is nailed to the bench at right angles, and the window is built from one corner to the other, using various tools to fit it together, checking all the time to make sure that it fits correctly. The lead is cut with pliers called dikes that are like wire cutters. It's also cut with this lead knife. The nails in the bench hold the pieces tightly in place. The came is an H-shaped strip made of lead. The pieces of glass fit between the parallel legs of the H. Nothing is soldered until the panel is fully assembled. In preparation for soldering, the joints are brushed with oleic acid flux to clean the lead. All of the joints on one side are soldered, and then the panel is flipped over and the other side soldered. The solder we use is 60% lead and 40% tin. When the soldering is completed, the panel is wiped down to remove the flux, which is acidic and would corrode the cames if left on. A very important step is waterproofing. A putty made of linseed oil, whiting, and a little lampblack to color it gray is brushed under the flanges of the lead so that the pieces of glass are fully sealed in the lead came and water can't get through. The edges of the came are then flattened down to hold the putty in. The panel is brushed to clean up the putty. It's then powdered with whiting, which is chalk, and absorbs the oil from the putty. The panel is brushed and polished to tone down the solder so that it's the same color as the lead. A nice, clean-looking dark gray. Now that the window is clean and the glass is repaired, we can see some of the beautiful details of the window, painted onto the colored glass with a vitreous black paint that's fired to become permanent. This was done when the window was first made in 1931. We can now see the rich colors of the glass. And the gorgeous face of Christ surrounded by doves.